Former ISRO chairman U.R. Rao's key role in releasing early stage of Aditya L1 mission recalled. He was a prominent personality of ISRO. There were many scientific issues that were attracting Professor Rao's attention, like studying the sun's chromosphere, the transition region, the corona, and its heating problem. According to ISRO, it is rather unfortunate that he could not live or alive to see or जिंदा नहीं है the realization of his pet mission means very important mission. With the successful launch of India's ambitious solar mission Aditya L1, former ISRO chief professor U.R. Rao's team and contribution toward its realization at the initial stage was fondly remembered. According to show, Professor Rao, affectionately called the father of India's satellite program, was particularly excited about the Aditya mission, and he ensured that it went through a thorough revamp of its mission objectives, including its orbital parameters, to make the expedition more meaningful and contemporary. Thanks to Professor Rao, Aditya L1 will become the first mission from India to be placed in the Lagrange point L1, one of the liberation point in orbital configuration situated 1.5 million kilometers from the Earth, where a satellite upon placing will have the same angular velocity as that of the Earth with respect to Sun, and hence maintain the same position in the relation to the Sun as seen from Earth. A tribute to Professor Rao on ISRO website states, the launch of Aditya L1 by PSLV C-55 launch vehicle was successfully accomplished by ISRO on Saturday. The vehicle has now placed the satellite precisely into its intended orbit, from where it would be proceeding on its journey towards its destination of Sun Earth L1 point on 125-day voyage. The spacecraft will finally placed in a halo orbit around the Lagrange point L1 of the Sun's Earth system. A satellite placed in the halo orbit around the L1 point has the major advantage of continuously viewing the Sun without any occultation or eclipse. This will provide a greater advantage of observing the solar activities and its effect on space weather at real time. Speaking after the successful launch, Aditya L1 project director Nigar Saji made special mention of UR Rao. At this juncture, I would like to remember Professor UR Rao, who shows the seed for this mission. She remarked. Professor Jagdeep Singh of Indian Institute of Astrophysics IIA, which built a visible emission line coronagraph VELC, the primary payload of Aditya L1, recalled the role played by Rao in determining L1 as the destination for the mission. ISRO first provided us a smaller platform of 50 centimeter later on when we were halfway through making the payload. At that time, the idea came that if we want to study the Sun 24 hours a day, then 365 days a year, when we go to the low Earth orbit and put the satellite in the polar orbit, then there will be some windows when the Sun gets eclipsed and we cannot observe the Sun in the low Earth orbit. So then ISRO, especially Professor U.R. Rao, suggested instead of low Earth orbit, we can go to L1, he said, with the plan to position the spacecraft in L1 along with Valve. Another 6 payloads were added, and satellite become much bigger and the mission to become larger, he added. Valve is an internally accurate chronograph with 40 different optical elements, mirror, gratings inside it that are aligned precisely. The atmosphere of the Sun, the corona, is what we see during a total solar eclipse. A coronagraph, like a Valk, is an instrument that cuts out the light from the disk of the Sun and can thus image the much fainter corona at all times. There were many scientific issues that were attracting Professor Rao's attention, like studying the Sun's chromosphere, the transition region, the corona, and its heating problem. According to ISRO, it is rather unfortunate that he could not live to see the realization of his pet mission. Rao, who was ISRO's chairman between 1984 to 1994, passed away aged 85 in 2017. He was the conferred the Padam Vibhushan. ISRO set a history from the moon to the sun. India launches next space mission. The latest mission in India's ambitious space program blasted off Saturday on voyage toward the center of the solar system, a week after country's successful unmanned moon landing. Aditya L1 launched shortly before midday with a live broadcast showing hundreds of spectators cheering wildly against the deafening noise of the rocket's ascent. Launch successful, all normal, an Indian Space Research Organization official announced from mission control as the vessel made its way to upper reaches of Earth's atmosphere. The mission is carrying scientific instruments to observe the sun's outermost layer in a 4-month journey. The United States and European Space Agency ESA have sent numerous probes to center of the solar system, beginning with NASA's Pioneer program in the 1960s. Japan and China have both launched their own solar observatory missions into Earth's orbit, but if successful, the latest mission from the Indian Space Research Organization ISRO will be the first by any Asian nation to be placed in orbit around the sun. It is a challenging mission for India. Astrophysicist Somak Ray Chaudhary told broadcaster ADTV on Friday. Ray Chaudhary said the mission probe would study coronal mass ejections, a periodic phenomena that see huge discharges of plasma and magnetic energy from the sun's atmosphere. These bursts are so powerful they can reach the Earth and potentially disrupt the operations of the satellite. Aditya will help to predict the phenomena and alter everybody so that satellite can shut down their power, he said. I will also help us understand how these things happen, and in the future, we might not need a warning system out there. Aditya, the name of Hindu sun deity, will travel 1.5 million kilometer or 15 lakh kilometer. It may be 9 lakh 30,000 miles to reach its destination. Still, only 1% of the vast distance between Earth and the Sun. At the point, gravitational force of celestial bodies can be cancelled each other out, allowing the mission to remain in the stable halo orbit around our nearest star, Sun. Aditya is a traveling on ISRO designed 320-ton PSLV XL rocket that has been mainstay of the Indian space program, powering earlier launches to the moon and Mars. The mission also aims to shed light on the dynamics of several other solar phenomena by measuring particles in the sun uppermost atmosphere. Budget program. By the budget point of view, India has steadily matching the achievements of established spacefaring powers at the fraction of their cost. The South Asian nation has a comparatively low budget space program, but one that has grown considerably in size and momentum since it first sent a probe to orbit the moon in 2008. Experts say India can keep costs low by copying and adapting existing technology, and thanks to an abundance of highly skilled engineers who earn a fraction of their foreign counterparts' wages. Last month, successful landing on the lunar surface, a feat previously achieved only by Russia, the United States, and China, cost less than 75 million. The touchdown was widely celebrated by public with a prayer rituals to wish for the mission's success and school children following its final descent from live broadcast in classroom. Indian became the first Asian nation to put a craft into orbit around Mars in 2014 and is slated to launch a 3-day crewed mission into the Earth's orbit by next year. It also plans a joint mission with Japan to send another probe to Moon by 2025 and orbit mission to Venus within the next 2 years. US fighter jet squadron at half, ammo almost out of stocks. American blind help to Ukraine hitting its own security. It's a very important lesson to learn by the bar of the Ukraine and Russia. Over the last week, the United States has announced fresh military aid package to Ukraine and Taiwan, but not equitably. The decision seems to have intensified debates in American strategic circle, whether by acceding to every request by Ukraine for more and more military aid. Washington is not only neglecting Taiwan to the increasing comforts of the China, but also undermining its own defense preparedness. You know that on August 29, the Biden administration announced the next package of military assistance to aid Ukraine, containing important capabilities such as AIM-9M missile for air defense, munition for high mobility artillery rocket system, 155 mm and 105 mm artillery ammunition, mine clearing equipment, javelin, and other anti armor system and rockets, over 3 million rounds of all arm ammunition, ambulances, demolition, munition for the obstacles clearing as well as spare parts service, training, and transportation. This package of weapons and equipment is valued around 250 million US dollar. This is above 41 billion that the US had already dispensed to Ukraine as military aid. Due to the military aid, in contrast, on August 30, President Biden approved military aid of only 80 US dollar 80 million US dollar for Taiwan under the Foreign Military Financing FMF program. Usually used for sovereign state, it was said that EMF will be used to strengthen Taiwan's self-defense capabilities through joint and combined defense capability and enhanced maritime domain awareness and maritime security capabilities. This is the first ever transfer of US military equipment to Taiwan under a program typically meant for sovereign countries. Strictly speaking, the US does not consider Taiwan to be an independent country, committed as it is to so-called One China principle. However, under the Taiwan Enhanced Resilience Act passed last year, the US government is also authorized to spend up to 2 million US dollar, announcing in military grant assistance to the island from 2023 to 2027. There is a vast difference between Ukraine and Taiwan. As far as a US military is concerned, Ukraine is at war, whereas Taiwan may face a war, but for expert, for the long term security of the United States, the whole world, any war over a Taiwan by China is a much bigger threat. Does the US have enough arm to deal with the threat over Taiwan? Military analysts are not so sure. Ukraine is even embasying the US, they say. A recent opinion poll by CNN said that most Americans, 55% Americans, oppose Congress authorizing additional funding to support Ukraine in its war with Russia. And 51 say the US has already done enough to help Ukraine. No need to do much more. Such findings are unsurprising as the US has already supplied Ukraine with over 75 billion US dollar in humanitarian, financial, and military support, representing 0.33 percentage of its GDP. You know, it's a too much downfall. This is said to be no mean sum when the US faces rising living cost and unemployment. It may be noted here that while aiding Ukraine, Biden is using the Presidential Drone Authority to direct a drone to provide military assistance under Section 506A, first of the Foreign Assistance Act FAA. It allows the speedy delivery of defense articles and services from Department of Defense stocks to foreign countries and international organizations to respond to unforeseen emergencies. Such assistance can arrive within a day or even hours of approval. In support of this effort, Congress has progressively increased the cap on this drone authority from 100 million US dollar to 11 billion for fiscal year 222, most recently in the additional Ukraine Supplemental Appropriations Act 2022, which was signed into law by the President on May 21. Since August 2022, the Biden administration has utilized this presidential drawdown authority 43 times to provide military assistance to Ukraine. However, now studies reveals that US military aid to Ukraine has severely depleted American arsenals and the already strained US defense industrial base cannot sustain current levels of Ukrainian munitions expenditure, much less replenish American stockpiles. Last September, the prestigious think tank Center of the Strategic and International Study (CSIS) found out some U.S. inventories reached the minimum levels needed for war plans and training. It examined the ability of defense industrial base to replace inventories in an emergency and concluded that the progress or a process would take many years for most items. So the problem is that the defense industrial base is seized for peace, peacetime production rates. Surge capabilities have been regarded as wasteful, vying factors capacity that was not planned to be used. Conversion of civilian industry to wartime production is theoretically possible but a long process. In World War II, that conversion took 2 to 3 years in a society and economy that was fully mobilized. Said. For example, the US has handed Ukraine about a third of its Stinger stockpile amounting to over 1600 of the soldier-fired anti-aircraft system, but the production line for the Stinger missile is in the worse shape than that of the Javelin, kept open only thanks to small amounts of foreign sale, according to CSIS. Even Raytheon Technology Chief Executive Gray Hayes has been reported to have admitted recently in the first 10 months of the war, we have essentially used up 13 years of the Stinger production and 5 years worth of the Javelin production for him. So the question is, how are we going to resupply, restock inventories? This is very important. That in another study, it says that U.S. Army produces about 14,155 shells monthly. Extrapolate that to year, and that's just 168,000 shells, less than a fifth of the number of 155 shells the US has given Ukraine in the past year. If all Ukrainian aid ended tomorrow, it would take the US just under 6 years to produce enough 155 millimeter shells to bring US stockpiles back to pre-war level. This is the condition of the US. This explains why the US is looking to boost production rate of these shells 20,000 shells per month. Sometimes this spring, but even then it would take just over 4 years to replenish 155 shells stockpiles. This is why the US wants to increase the production more than fourfold from 20 to 90,000 shells per month by 2025. Congress has already provided the factories that produce 155 shells 420 million US dollar, but United States is projected to spend nearly 2 billion US dollar on boosting the production of 155 shells this year alone. Even at that new production rate, it would still take 11 months and change to bring 155 shell stockpiles back to the pre-war level. Assuming that US stopped giving Ukraine 155 shell entirely. The depleting stockpiles are further indicated by the Biden administration's recent decision to supply Ukraine with cluster munitions, which are banned in over 100 countries, including NATO allies. The White House claimed it intended to use cluster munitions, munitions as a brigade, while artillery shell production ramps up. Yet another study by the Center for the Renewing America says that the US has sent approximately 8,500 Javelin anti tank missiles to the Ukrainian armed forces. It would take up to 8 years to replenish our stockpiles at current production rate, assuming no more missiles are sent to Ukraine. Similarly, the US has provided over 1,600 Stinger missiles to Ukraine. The US has not produced any Stinger missile since 2003, but under maximum estimated restored production rate, it would take at least 6 years to replenish our stockpiles. Additionally, we can say that the US has sent Ukraine over a million artillery shell. The US produces around 20 artillery shell a month with a plan to increase its production between 70 to 90 shell a month over the next several years. In fact, in July this year, none other than USAFE, UA Air Force in Europe, Commander James Hacker admitted that the stockpiles of the US weapons and those of the allies are getting dangerously low. If you look at the US itself, and let's not just talk about munitions, the Ukraine, which I think is exactly what we need to do, but now we are getting dangerously low, and sometimes, in some cases, even too low. That we don't have enough, and we need to get industry on board to help us out so we can get this going, he said. As the Center of Renewing America studies say, this shortage includes many of weapons systems that the US is supplying to Ukraine are also needed by Taiwan to deter and defeat a Chinese invasion. There is an approximately 19 billion US dollar backlog of the weapons delivered to Taiwan, partially caused by the US pre, pre prioritizing arms supply for Ukraine. Many of the same weapon systems being supplied to Ukraine, Harpoon missile, HIMARS rocket, are also needed by Taiwan and other East Asian partners, creating a real trade-off against the US ability to deter Chinese aggression. It also warns there is also a real risk that weapons sent to Ukraine could fall into the wrong hands. Ukraine historically has been one of the most corrupt countries in the world and has a history of being a source of illicit arms smuggling, including for advanced weapon systems. For example, Ukraine has provided cruise missile technology to Iran, sold China its first aircraft carrier, and likely provided rocket engines that enabled North Korea to launch its first international ballistic missile. Against this background, two fundamental questions are relevant here. For one, when the defense industry base is struggling to produce weapons for Ukraine, should China invade Taiwan? Would the US not run out of ammunition within a week? For another, is that amount of aid spent supporting Ukraine not far out